TCI is brought to you by Brody's Cause, Spendthrift Farms multiple Grade 1 winner by Giants Causeway, whose first foals are arriving now.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. Alongside Joel Cunningham, I'm John Siegel. Well, Joel, all the Derby preps are in the books. We now know who is going to be in the Derby field, or at least who's earned a berth into this year's Derby field. I want to recap 2 races, and then we're going to take a look at the top 24 horses. But let's start off here in Lexington, in the Lexington Stakes. We talked about My Boy Jack and how he was really the only horse who could earn enough points to get into the Derby. Yeah. You know, had probably enough to get in going into the weekend, but this would secure his chance. Joel, I thought he did what he had to do in this race. Didn't look ultra impressive, but tell me, what did you think of it?
Yeah, you know, I think they obviously wanted to run in the Derby. You know, did they want to run this horse? It's a little slight framed, you know, 3 weeks before the Kentucky Derby. Probably not, but at least it was a mile and a 16th against a weaker group as opposed to the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby at a mile and 1/8 where he would have really had to lay down and get some good horses here. Yeah. And you see him here flying on the outside with Kent DeSormo. Telekinesis slipped up the rail, John. A horse, again, with a lot of ability. I think when the light bulb goes on with him in the future, he could be that late season 3-year-old we're talking about a few months from now, maybe going into the big races like the Travers. But you see My Boy Jack here getting up, and you see Kent. He does just enough to win. I don't think he asked the horse for a big gallop out. He's a very small horse, John. He's not a horse that you want to empty out 3 weeks before the biggest race of his life. I think he's a horse that's probably going to need rain in the forecast in the Derby to make an impact. The speed figure, he got a 90 buyer, wasn't a fast race. I mean, Telekinesis, again, horse that ran handily beaten 3rd against, frankly, bad allowance horses at Fairgrounds coming into this. Now, I do think Telekinesis took a step forward, and I think he's a quality animal. He's just mentally not there yet. You see little thing like going down the backstretch, you know, the rider really had to take a hold of Telekinesis. He was not willing to get into a good rhythmic stride to allow him to be able to finish. There's still some things that he's going to have to polish up on his game before he runs in races like the Queen's Plate. But back to My Boy Jack, I mean, a 90 by your speed figure, you know, this horse, he's going to need a speed meltdown in front of him, and I think he moves up on a wet track. Other than that, he's only a player for a minor award, I think, in the Derby.
All right, well, let's move now then, and let's talk about the Arkansas Derby. You know, this was the last 100-point race. This was the, you know, the big recap. We've seen a lot of good horses come over from California and run in this race, but they were up against a really good Todd Pletcher horse in Magnum Moon. Tell me, what did you think about the race, and tell me what you think of his performance and just the way that he was just kind of drifting out and looking a little green to me.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, look, the race really set up for him. Having said that, you're taking a horse that, you know, has been coming from off the pace, and you're putting him down on the rail with a good horse stalking him on the outside on the lead, you know, a place that he's not familiar with, except maybe in the morning when he breezes inside of horses. You see him come off the rail. What I missed there is he switches his leads way too early, John. I don't know if he just loses focus. I mean, it's 60-something thousand people there. They're roaring. They get loud at Oaklawn. It's a big attendance. It's a big, huge day. It's a big event. And this horse just keeps drifting out. Looks like he's going well here, though, John. You see him separate from this group. And look, they go the half mile in 48-3. You know, the race before that, the Oaklawn Handicap, saw how fast the track was. They went the half mile in 46-3, 10 lengths faster. And look, horses that were right up there on the lead, you know, Accelerating City of Light ran 1-2. Now, that's a good group of older horses, and they got a really big buyer speed figure. Magnum Moon only got a 98, and it was a very easy trip for him. I think he's just green. I mean, we've talked about that, John. Yeah. This horse, I mean, he's come along fast. I mean, to breaking your maiden at the, you know, beginning of the year, you know, 3/4 to shipping at Tampa, he's at least knocked down every challenge in front of him. And boy, does he have a beautiful way of going. A big, scopy, strong colt with a huge upside, John. And it's very interesting to see how he continues to take steps and strides in his final works leading up to the Kentucky Derby, because no question it's going to be not only, you know, his biggest challenge from a competitor standpoint, but also from a mental standpoint, John. He needs to keep checking those boxes. A lot of people are going to knock the way he, you know, drifted out there and swapped his leads a little early there, but you have to love the natural ability. And look, the fact that the horse, again, he's knocked down every challenge in front of him to date. I wanted to knock him for his mental issues. I mean, that's why he took so long to make the top 10. Loved the talent. Loved it. I saw some things and how he's all over the pony in the post-parade. Even in this race, he gets a little waxy, a little kidney sweat before the race. He's a good feeling type horse, John. Mentally, he hasn't put it together yet. Once he mentally puts it together, man, the sky's the limit for this colt.
I'll tell you, it's funny when we're looking at, we've been having this debate, you know, you're talking about horses that, just class and talent, you know, and you look at some of these younger horses, and we do have some pretty immature mentally horses that are coming into the Derby. They're going to have to really grow up here in the next few weeks just to be ready for that. If you think that crowd was loud in Arkansas, wait till he arrives at Churchill and he's there in that first Saturday in May. Let's take a look at the top 24, and let's go through a few of the contenders, and let's talk about them just a little bit. I know that you got this chart set up, and you stopped at 22 just because there's a bunch of horses with 20 points.
Correct.
Now, there will be some horses that could potentially not run into this field, and I know you wanted to talk a little bit about that. So tell us who you think is really, I don't want to say guaranteed, because they got a long way to go. 3 weeks is a long way to go till the Derby, but tell me who you think will be in the field.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see who ends up running. I mean, we always have some attrition late in the game, and you know, there'll be up to 4 also eligibles. That's really why I stopped at 22 here. And look, Catholic Boy's not running. He bled, you know, a few weeks ago in the Florida Derby. They have no intention of running him. Jerry Hollendorfer was very disappointed in Instilled Regard. And I don't know if his owner, Lawrence Best, wants to run the Derby or not. That could dictate whether or not he gets on a plane. But if you listen to Hollendorfer, you know, the way this horse came in the Arkansas or Santa Anita Derby and the way he performed, you wouldn't think that he was coming to Louisville for the Kentucky Derby. It looks like they wanted to go back to the drawing board with Instilled Regard after a disappointing couple months there. So who knows what happens here to this list. I mean, there are horses that are below this, like I said, that I still think have a shot at least getting in the also eligibles. You know, Lucas, like a horse like Sporting Chance. I mean, it wouldn't shock me at all if they still pursued the Derby and a little attrition here or there, you know, he could end up in the also eligibles or in the main body of the field. So I still think we've got a couple weeks. There's some time yet for some things to develop. Right now, everybody's in through 19 because you have your automatic European invite, and that was Gronkowski, and the Gronk bought into this, Cole John. Look, he comes to the Derby every year with Tom Brady and those cats. You might as well own a piece of one, and it might be one of the longest shots on the board, but he'll own a piece of a Derby horse. Yeah,
I read on Twitter today, somebody said, you know, you're guaranteed 2 things. You're going to have way more money than needs to be bet on Gronkowski, and the walkover is now going to be really exciting because you're going to have Gronk, and there'll be a party on the way over for sure. You know, it's interesting. We talk a little bit about just their mental and where these horses are in their development. You know, we mentioned MAGNUM still a little bit just immature. You know, we also saw that a little bit with Justify, a horse that is, you know, another late developing 3-year-old. You know, he was a little immature in his race, and Mike was kind of like, hey, you know, I need a little bit more attention from him. Goofing off in the back, you know, on the backside of the race a little bit. So it's an interesting thing to see these guys bringing these horses that have a ton of talent, but maybe not a whole lot of experience.
John, this is the most intriguing Kentucky Derby field since we've been doing this show in the last 9 years, and maybe longer. I mean, frankly, you know, it is. And I think that I say that from a number of standpoints, really from a depth of quality standpoint. I mean, this is a deep, talented group this year. Luckily, so far, we haven't had the injuries that we've had in the past that have, you know, sidelined top contenders and inhibited, you know, their ability to make this race successfully. I mean, just look at the final preps. Were there any big upsets? I mean, basically, you have a win and you're in all these final major preps to where if you run 1-2, you're going to get in the field with at least 40 points, right? The reason you don't see any long shot names in this list essentially is because you look at the 1-2 finishers in all the major final prep races, and they were legit contenders, many of them, most of which already had earned their way into the Kentucky Derby most likely. So I think that speaks to the quality of the field and how top heavy it is this year. And from an intriguing standpoint, John, like you said, MAGNUM Moon and Justify, 2 big time talents that are mentally trying to, you know, catch up with their generation in terms of experience. They have to overcome the whole Apollo curse that everybody's going to beat into the ground over the next few weeks. But look, all they've done is win, knock down every challenge in front of them, and they didn't get there by you know, cupcake prep races. I mean, the Arkansas Derby, Santa Anita Derby, I mean, they had to run against some, really, those were 2 of the best prep races in my opinion. And those horses won easily in those races, John. So I do think there's room for improvement there. It's interesting, the mental aspect. I'm not worried about the foundation. I mean, look, can you be in 2 better barns? You're in Pletcher's barn, you're in Baffert's barn. Can you be in 2 better barns to win a race like the Kentucky Derby? Also, they have the talent, but they have the style. I mean, MAGNUM Moon, nobody wanted to go in the Arkansas Derby, fine. Ended up on the lead himself, and he just kept on going. They gave it to him. I mean, same thing with Justify. Has the tactical speed. So this isn't curling. These aren't horses that have a style that's going to be detrimental to them, I think they're going to have every advantage going into a race like Kentucky Derby. And I think there's a really good shot one of those two horses can punch through and break that Apollo curse.
All right, well, let's take a look at the TCI top 10 now that we kind of know which horses are headed to the Derby. Let's see. This is, you know, this is what we'll be going into the Derby with. I'll let you talk about your top 10 and why you move some horses up and some horses down.
Yeah, so Magnum Moon, again, the upside is just tremendous. I was so impressed with him that, in my opinion, you know, it was close between he and Mendelssohn, you know, and who really deserved that 3 spot. I mean, I love Bolt D'Or and Justify. I've said those are my 1-2 for the Derby, and that has never really changed for me in recent weeks. But who to put in that 3 spot? I gave Magnum Moon the edge because, again, he's a North American colt. He's knocked down the dirt questions.
Yep.
You know, mile and a quarter shouldn't be an issue for him when you look at that long stride. And again, to me, he doesn't have that 2-year-old foundation that Mendelssohn has, but we talked about this last week with Justify. The fact that he is tested and tried and true on the dirt, that means more to me than the 2-year-old foundation from a turf horse with the European training style and all the question marks that comes out of breaking from the gate, getting early position, taking the spray in the face, the bumping and the things like that, you know, the whole pace of real legitimate North American pace, which ironically usually isn't that fast in the Kentucky Derby since they changed the point system in 2012. To me, it's just a style thing for Mendelssohn. The fact that I just think, even though Aidan O'Brien's a tremendous trainer, what they're trying to do, there's a reason we haven't seen these horses make an impact. And he is the best one. No doubt in my mind. I think he is the best European to come over to try it. Still, I don't think he has a lot of experiences that give me confidence against this good of a North American group that he deserves to be a top 3 contender. So he's in the 4 spot for me, John. Good Magic, you know, he's only your 2-year-old champion.
Right.
You know, just won last time out. He drops to 5 for me. And look, you got the 3 Curlins here. VINO Rosso, I think, moves up. A very good Wood Memorial wins. Got the right style. I think he's going to be a mile and a quarter type horse. And then Sola Mini, the 3rd Curlin colt. Again, disappointed in Sola Mini to some degree just because he's not professionally doing things the right way. But you want to talk about the guts in this horse. I mean, he's absolutely wide behind a crawling pace in the Arkansas Derby. And immediately when they went down the backstretch, I said, oh, this is easy. This is going to be Quip. This is an easy race to figure out. I mean, it could have stopped it right there. It's either going to be Quip or Magnum Moon. Nothing behind these horses have a shot based on the way that track was playing, based on how easily those colts were on the lead going 1-2 around there in that 48 3/2 mile. Sola Mini's wide the whole way around there. Behind that slow pace, he still makes a wide run. Combatant passes him on the outside, and he still re-engages, and Quip beats him by that much for 2nd place. I mean, the horse runs 3rd somehow in this race after not swapping his leads again. I mean, bad antics. He has a very choppy way of going. Again, I'm not sure what's going on with Sola Mini. He's got to figure things out. It's sloppy. It's not pretty to watch, but the horse has so much guts and heart that, again, he could make an impact on the Derby because I think a mile and a quarter with his style, he's going to give it everything down that stretch.
You know, it was interesting. We talked about seeing things on Twitter, and there's a lot of people talking right now what they're going to do with these horses. I saw that Mr. Zayat said that, look, he's got to do a lot in his training coming into the Derby. I don't just run horses in the Derby because it's the Derby. He's got to show me that he wants to run in there. So he, like you said, he's really going to have to train the next couple of weeks just to even be in there. Just because he has the points, he may not show up.
Well, he hasn't worked well. Everybody works against him, outworks him. Restoring Hope, you know, the horse that ran in the wood, that, you know, everybody saw that work, and Restoring Hope's price went down in the Wood Memorial. I mean, he went off at a very short price because I think they felt like he was that bad for a horse coming to New York that was going to break through. He outworked Sola Mini so easily a few weeks ago, but everybody outworks Sola Mini now. He's not a good workhorse. I don't know if it's mental, if it's physical. I mean, he had that deal to where at the end of the year, after the low salvaturity, they took him, you know, he didn't have works for a while, and they sort of took him out of play and put him back in. I don't know what's going on there. All I know is the horse has a ton of heart, and he has a classic profile. And if they do decide to run him in the Kentucky Derby and he's training better coming up to the race, I think he can definitely be on the board. I'm just not sure a grinder like that can win the race.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next couple weeks here, getting over to Churchill. We'll be able to see these horses, see how they're training. I know there's a couple of them that'll be coming in next week, so it'll be good to start getting eyeballs on these guys and getting some input on them.
I'll be out there this weekend, and we'll have our first impressions in next week's show.
All right, looking forward to it. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Come back next week. Like we said, we'll have our first impressions, and we'll start talking about Derby strategy.